one moment God's got a plan, and next moment this is way beyond what I ever thought would happen.
He says, "What am I going to do when I get big, when I grow up?" I said, I can see you now, Stephen. You're in a studio and you're drawing all by yourself."
Was always happy and always, at home with us a lot. He didn't, do much.
How was Stephen when he was younger?
Ornery, sweet boy. He was in Scouts. He was good at anything he started.
Oh, earlier he was really happy and fun, and he was pretty spoiled. I mean, he was the only child out of, so many other grown siblings.
Stephen and his friends always went out and went to different parties, and he had seen these two girls there. They were pretty common at the parties, and so one of his friends started dating one of the girls. And one night, his friend's car broke down, so he called Stephen up to ask Stephen for a ride. Stephen was really kind of hesitant at first. He says, "No, I don't want to get out or anything like that." And his friend was really kind of talked him into going out with him to take him so that he could see his girlfriend. And once they arrived at the girl's home, he was sitting on top of the top step. They lived in apartments. He was at the top step in front of the front door, thinking that the girls were going to be coming out that way. And then the next thing he knows, he turns around and he sees the girls coming from the backside. Apparently they jumped off of the balcony from the second story so they could meet with these guys. And Stephen said, "Well, how old are you?" And they said, "Well, we're 17 and a half. And he said, "Well, why'd you have to jump off the balcony?" And they were saying, "Well, our father's really strict. And so we just didn't want him to know that we were sneaking out." And the next thing was the police had came over to the house asking to see Stephen. They gave Stephen his Miranda rights, and Stephen's like, "Oh, I don't have anything to hide." He said, he goes, "Well, did you have sex with this girl?" And he goes, "Yeah, but it was consensual." And not thinking anything of it, I was pulling it up to the house, and there was like 5 or 6 police officers in the yard, and I don't even really think that Stephen understood what was happening, but he felt like he didn't have anything to hide. Once they put him in the back of the police car, they told him that he was under arrest for raping an 11-year-old. And Stephen's like, no, that can't be. He says, "That's not right." But that was his beginning. We were going through the process of the courts, and it was found out like maybe a month afterwards that Stephen wasn't the only one that this girl had accused of raping her. That there was one man that was already in prison, and one man was undergoing an investigation and was arrested for the crime. Stephen, initially, the judge had given Stephen probation. That the stepfather and the prosecuting attorney was mad and said that they would retry the case, and Stephen could face up to 23 years in prison.
it's just not the way the court system's supposed to work.
The initial no jail time for Bradford angered the girl's foster dad. Prosecutors quickly filed for a motion to have the sentence, quote, corrected.
3 years probation is basically sending a message to the community that you can, if a girl lies about her age, it's okay to commit a crime.
The judge didn't want to hand down the minimum sentence at that time was 7 years. He didn't want to do that, but you know, we were asking him to please do it so that, you know, we don't have to go through another retrial and you know, possibly losing Stephen forever.
When Stephen got into trouble, I started visiting him weekly in the detention center, and then over time that turned into volunteer opportunities, and now I'm actually a chaplain in a jail right now, and so I have the opportunity to meet with many Stephens every single day. And one of the things that's just amazing about this is that when I first met Stephen, he was the first one that I had really dealt with that was incarcerated, and I thought that his story was unique. But since then, I've talked to so many people, and similar things have happened as far as like getting into trouble, and things really weren't necessarily on it. He wasn't necessarily on a level playing field. There were things beyond. There were things that he didn't really know about, and all of those things added up, and he was in trouble. And just the amount of people that I've talked to over the years that have been in similar situations is just really surprising.
When Stephen was in prison, he went from 162 pounds to 120 pounds. He was abused, he was mocked, he was ridiculed, he was beaten, he had bruises all over his face. And
how could this be happening? Because it just seemed like things just got out of control so fast. And how could that happen? And then one time I'd talk to him and it'd be he'd have a strong faith. And the next time I would talk to him, it would be like, how can God let this happen to me? And why doesn't God just step in and stop the madness?
They decided to put him in protective custody, which is isolation. And in that isolation, he had no friends, he had nobody he could talk to. He was just alone. And
when he was in prison, I went every other week to see him. And I missed 1 week, and that's the week his mother called me. He somehow managed to hang himself.
It just was devastating. A good kid who had never done, you know, he was a good kid. He just loved life, and he was, you know, just a big part of all of our lives. And so it's just devastating to lose him.
Okay, Stephen. So I got on the bike, went up the hill. That was strenuous, and it was that little hill to go up. out here. And so I had to get off and push the bike. He said, Grandma, you're not going to learn if you don't get on the bike. Okay, well, wait till we get on the sidewalk. So we got on the sidewalk, and he was, of course, kind of ahead of me, but he kept looking back to see how I was doing. So I fell off the bike.
Oh.
And I yelled, Stephen, Stephen! He came back and he helped me up. He said, we'll push these bikes back home. I said, okay, that's a good idea. That was the end of my bike lesson.